Welcome to Art Talk with April. I'm April Harris. I'm the artist of Inked April, located in Birmingham, Alabama. And this podcast is going to be about all things art. We'll talk about books, invite some artists to interviews, and much, much more. Let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Art Talk with April. And today we have an amazing artist, Marmaduke Davenport. And Marmaduke, what kind of art is it that you're making?
What would I call it? I'm not sure. It's I even struggled to call myself an artist to start with. It didn't even sit well. I'm what they'd call an outside artist, not affiliated with any university or anything like that. And I just started making things. I was making, in my head, what I wanted to find as a kid when I was exploring in like old attics and old, I wanted to create something quite magical that someone else would find. It's called automatons or automata. And it's basically the word is, how do we say, replicating nature or human movement. And it's just, it's like the prequel to robotics, I suppose. I don't know. I mean, some of it it has a big sort of movement in the 1700s. It's been around for a long time. Even Leonardo da Vinci, I don't know if you know that lion that walked in and spat tulips. And so it's always been around. But what it's called, I don't think there is a name. There's a few of us that have recently just got together, like all the artists listening. It can be a lonely, tricky existence. We're not knowing doubting yourself. Is it good enough? So we've all connected for them reasons, and we've all got the same problems. We've hit the same pitfalls. We've got the same ups, the same downs. 1 minute we're taking over the world and we're all selling stuff, and then the next day we're panicking like hell because the shipment ain't turned up. So we're quite fallible. Like, oh no, and it's quite funny to watch our little group. But yeah, so with that group, we're even. One of the guys is going to make a name for it because there isn't one, so he tells me. So we're going to invent our own name, like a collective of automaton builders, I suppose.
Sure.
I don't know what it's called, but animation, I think I'm more comfortable with, and I animate things.
Well, that's really interesting. Where are you located at?
I'm located in a small village near London. I didn't grow up here. I grew up about 40 miles away from where I live today in an old coaching town, ever so old. A lot of history, old stone buildings.
I can imagine.
And it was quite run down. As a kid in the early 80s, there was a lot of derelict buildings. I suppose that's where my sort of finding treasure come from, I used to go exploring around, and it was a wonderful old place. Really, really nice. And I suppose that's where the oldie worldie comes from. That's where my heart was. Everyone's heart is with their childhood, isn't it? We always trying to recreate, our past, if you like.
You're right about that. I've noticed that actually with a few other artists that I've interviewed with, that everyone seems to go through a process of discovery and like searching for something. And then eventually they end up going back to something from childhood. And that ends up being the thing that they love, And so that's really interesting.
Yeah, there's an artist I work with, and she's, I'll give a shout out to her. She's fantastic and really, really privileged to be working with her. It's Judy Keeps.
Oh, okay.
She and I've said to her because all her pictures are sad, whereas all mine are insanely happy. And hers is more like childhood lost, whereas mine's searching and refinding childhood. And that seems to be it's the same thing, but very different. So yeah, it is sort of based around there because my characters are always insanely smiling, and there's a real dark twistedness to it. But You know, well.
I think that's what I really liked about your work as well, is that sort of darkness, because, I myself, in some of my own work, I don't know if you've happened to check it, and if you haven't, it's no big deal, but I do that as well. And so a lot of times when you're making these kinds of pieces, like, how do people seem to react to them?
I suffer hugely with people pleasing and seeking approval. So I really work hard on making them as good as possible. And I've thrown out a lot. But even my mum said, "Why are you throwing that out?" I didn't think it was good enough, because I don't like negative feedback. You see, I'm my own worst critic.
Yeah.
So and it's worked. So I've not only get praise, which I feed off immensely, and I, rightly or wrongly, I crave it, and it does, and it gives me ego a bit of a boost, and I have to watch that. And I've had one troll so far. I've got a friend who does it for fun, but one, he was quite nasty about it all. He was just bitter and twisted, you know. I just tied him up with words. He weren't, you know. In fact, I quite enjoyed the little spat we had, but yeah, it's received quite well up to now. Yeah, you know, it's just luckily, if it wasn't, I'd have stopped long ago. That's in my life. I'd have tried something else that works.
Well, I think that's you know, one of those common artists' problems, and we go through these cycles of, I made this amazing thing. This is fantastic, and then the very next day you're like, what was I thinking? That's completely not what I wanted, you know, and then you go through the cycles. So when you get that validation from an outside person, you're like, oh, okay, someone gets it. It's
a double whammy with what I do, because it's all the aesthetics, and it's got to move, properly, and it's not got a break, you know. So for a good few years, I was working. I wasn't even online. I didn't look for any inspiration. I just worked. It was not good enough. And my mum, because I live with my mum. I moved in with my mum, and stepdad died, which allows me to do what I do now. And she was saying, why aren't you selling it? Why aren't you? So for a few years, I weren't selling anything, and it was just piling up. And the first bits I was selling for like 30 quid, 50 quid, and now for the small ones, and now just getting like 205 for them now. You know, but they're better. They're improving all the time. But it is a double, and I keep thinking, you know, someone who buys a painting ain't going to hang it on the wall and then go back to the artist and say the paint's running. It's there, it's finished. But with the moving thing, it's like, and there's a saying, if it moves, it's going to break. So it is quite, I
never thought about that. Like, it's an ongoing process in itself. And then have you had people buy things from you, and then even like years later something happens to it and they come back?
No, I mean, I've only been selling for about 2 years. But I've just sold one. I tried a little auction on Instagram. I set it all up myself, and it didn't go. It was all right. It was, but it was someone who'd already bought a piece off me. And it still didn't get as much as I'd have liked. But that was testing it. But they've just received it, and there was a little flashing light, and it's quite a delicate thing, and that doesn't work. So after this, I've got to talk to her how to fix it. And I've had a couple break in shipping, and even shipping the work. I mean, again, shipping a painting's relatively easy. These are delicate, so I get special crates made.
Oh, wow.
I nearly threw in the towel. I thought, how am I going to ship these? I can't sell them. You know, it was just like, and that was hard. All of it was hard. You know, if I was to do it again, I probably wouldn't. But yeah, and people praise the crates more than my work, which is funny enough. They paint them, put the piece inside, and use them as little display boxes. So that's nice, you know, and I'll put a little free gift in, and I want the whole experience to be good, you know. It's not the changing of money is that awkward bit. I don't like that. Like all artists, we don't know, do we? You know. So yeah, I find that bit difficult. So I want them to receive it well. I'm even thinking of decorating the crates with like labels and stamps, and just going too far as we do. We're obsessive people, aren't we? But yeah, I don't know. I can't remember what the question was there. We just moved on. So.
Well, that's interesting. So much of what you have been doing is what I've gone through myself, but now I feel bad because my experience was not nearly as complicated because I'm trying to send flat artwork like on paper, and so I'm worried about the paper getting bent, but I couldn't imagine sending something like what you make. I mean, that's just oh,
that's why there's not many of us doing it, I think.
I mean, it absolutely
people got more sense.
It has to take a certain kind of person to make something like that. Like, how do you go, if you don't mind sharing your process, how do you go about like coming up with the idea? Do you sketch out things first and then, I'm sure you've got all of these, like you said, robotics and things like that you're putting it all together with. But what do you?
Well, in most of it's in my head. There's a darker side to how I built the first one. The first one is a big blue that sits in the hallway downstairs, as you go in the door. But what happened, and this is a sad story, really. It was a long time ago when I split up with an ex, and I went through a hell of a bad time. Sofa surfing, lost the house, drinking far too much and all that goes with it. And the only place I could find quiet in my mind was designing this puppet theatre in my head. I used to write all the time. Everywhere I lived, there was writing and drawings all over the walls. I was insane. But the only quietness that I could think to sleep was designing this puppet theatre. It sounds strange, right? And but then I got in recovery, and I thought I'm going to make that, because I was bad, and I shouldn't be ashamed of it. I'm not.
I think that for some people that's part of being an artist. I mean,
pain.
Well, I mean, I find that art is healing. I don't know how, I don't know why, but I feel like art is a healing process and that it helps those who are makers and creators just work through something, So,
do you think the pain creates the artist, or do you think we're just artists that way inclined? I don't know.
Well, I don't know. That's a very interesting question. Because, I mean, then you have your artists who are creating very, and I'm not talking badly about these artists, but they're creating more cheerful, like ocean scenes and, beautiful, beautiful paintings and things like that. But there's something about, and that may be what drew me to your work, actually, is there's something about when you see something in a creation where you feel like there's a story there and it's interesting. It has more depth to it.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, originally I was writing a story. And it was, lots of the bits were part of that universe. And Marmaduke Davenport was a character. And the name, it comes from, it was a con man used it in the 1700s. It was his name that he used, Alexander Day, to get into the gentry. And I come across it and I thought, that's great. And the guy was helping me write, and he was saying, you've got to give your work a name. He said, you've got to establish yourself. And I was calling it all bits and cogs and this and that and whatever. And we was just chatting, and I thought, Marmaduke Davenport. He said, that'll do. So that's why I got stuck with that. And it got carried away, really. It wasn't on purpose. And then when I was signing stuff and saying, Marmaduke, I felt really weird. Just then I'm not telling you my real name now.
Oh, that's so fun.
But yeah, so the story is like I'm time traveling, sort of a cross between Doctor Who and Willy Wonka, sort of. And Judy, who I love working with, I've said to her, we've spoken about it, of doing an animation, a little cartoon of the character. Maybe I'll do the book. But that's fantasy story. But yeah, the life story behind stuff is, well, that's what defines us, isn't it? That's where we, so there is a dark side to it, certainly.
Yeah.
But I was even like, I'd always find humour in the dark side of life. Laughter is the only tonic, wouldn't it? And I suppose that's why I make it a bit bonkers, if you like.
Yeah.
For want of a better word.
Like you're twisting it around into something else, like you're making it into something.
I tend to think like that as well. I mean, if I could get carried away with my thoughts, I suppose if you do, you get paranoid. But I suppose that's what makes us a bit different. Like even comedians, they're that little edge off of how everyone else sees things, and it's almost like a discomfort that gives that laugh. They see something that other people don't see, and you just laugh at it because you don't know what other. Do you know what I mean? I think we're a little bit skewed, but if that's the right.
Sometimes if you stop to think about what they're talking about, it can be rather dark, but the way that they're twisting it, it makes it funny, So yeah.
And it's a bit like that, and I suppose that's the same with art because we're sort of bearing our souls, aren't we? In whatever medium we're doing it. And people look at it, and some people, they can notice themselves in it, or there's bits that they've never really thought of, or there's, a lot of the inspiration, or some of the art I used to like. Well, not used to, I still do. But as a kid, was medieval art, and that was sort of hard to look at back then. It was hard to find. It was hard to come across. I put on a post the other day. It was about when I was a child. Look, if I wanted to look at art, I had a few books I had, all tatty old books, which you kept looking at, or I'd have to go to the library and have a look, or get them photocopied. And we used to go and collect shopping trolleys off people to take back. You get 10p for them, and the photocopies were 10p in the library. And then I'd just collect all these folders of like black and white prints of art out of the library. But now we've got it all at our fingertips. But the medieval art, it was hard. It just wasn't there. It was like a hidden knowledge, if you like. Whereas now people are a bit more aware of it. But I think a lot of my inspiration comes from that. It's, what's his name? Hieronymus Bosch. Do you know who that is?
Yes.
He done that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
What's the names of I can't remember the names of his paintings, but you've got the Dante's Levels of Hell or something. But yeah, that sort of work, and it's all very. In fact, a lot of artists. I get a lot of people say, "Is it Monty Python, Terry Gilliam?" And I loved Terry Gilliam and I loved Monty Python, but that wasn't what I was gunning for. But if you look back, he's inspired by medieval art. And there's even like a little Yoda. If you look in the margins of the medieval, they're brilliant little comics of hares and rabbits killing knights, and even fart jokes are funny. There's all sorts of weird stuff going on, So it's still, anyone that hasn't seen it, I can't remember what the name of it's called now, but Medieval Margins, have a look. It's quite entertaining.
I'll have to look that up. That sounds interesting.
I think the monks who were writing the books used to put them on there. They were taking a mickey, really, They were doing all this, and that was their little naughtiness, if you like.
Awesome.
Flicking through a Bible and you're having someone having a poo at a tree or something.
Oh my gosh. These little expressions that, it just, I feel like it kind of connects us today in modern society with that medieval person, and they're making these silly doodles or whatever.
Well, they were cartoons. They were just cartoons, and we've got cartoons now. But there was also fine artists back then. It's not. I don't think I personally believe we've been the same all the time. But maybe we've lost a lot of history. But some of it, you go, and it's phenomenal what they draw. Better than what you get today. So I don't know, but I love the history of it, which is funny because I didn't like history at school. I didn't. I thought myself.
I love history now, and in school I could not stand it. I mean, it was just.
No, I hated school. I hated it. I didn't go. I left a year early. I don't like being told what to do, but then. The ironic thing is I've become a school caretaker sometime later for about 15 years.
Yeah, okay.
I was working in the school, which I loved.
Yeah.
Well, school with no lessons is great. And, so I used to taught myself there, and I was chatting with all the teachers and I really developed through that job. In the late shifts, I would go and mess around in the DT departments and the science departments. I sort of had it all at my fingertips, That was my education. So I went to school with no teachers.
Yeah.
At night.
Yeah, that sounds like an awesome opportunity to.
It was. I sort of made it work for me, and it did. And again, it was hard at the time. It was in them dark days. Well, I didn't have anyone to go back and say, "Oh, guess what I'd done today?" I was just existing there. But I'd fall asleep in the library with a bottle of wine. Wake up just before the teachers were getting there. Panic and hide and.
Oh my God!
I've been there all night,
Have you been creating these things, I guess, from the beginning when you had this experience with your ex?
Yeah.
You immediately went into this creating animated type work?
No. I mean, I've always been making stuff.
Yeah.
Even as a kid, I'd always collect stuff. I was always fascinated at stuff that moved. I was rubbish at building stuff, really. Again, the information was never available. Like now on YouTube, if you want to do some spray painting, you can have a look. Shows you how to do it the easy way, and it's simple. Whereas back then it wasn't. But I was only a kid anyway. But I had a huge, not huge. I mean, the house was small, but it was big for me, and it was just full of cardboard tubes and just rubbish I'd collect. And then I'd come home one day and it'd all been thrown out, and I'd be devastated. And and I'd go collect it again. And I'd always walk with my head down. I was always looking at the ground trying to find stuff.
Oh my goodness!
And I found something that moved, had a wheel on it. That wheel and the handle. Oh, hey, that's treasure to me.
Yeah. The reason I'm kind of giggling over that is because that's exactly how my son is. He does all of those things, and we just got him a box to put all of his things in that he collects. And it's wires and wheels and little screws and things. And he has his own tool set, and he takes it all apart.
Brilliant.
And trying to put wires together to see what it does, And
you got a genius there in the making.
In the past, month or so, he has started taking apart everything. Takes everything apart and wants to know why it's doing what it's doing. And
you sort of want to encourage that, but not with your stuff.
You're like, don't take apart everything.
Don't touch the TV. Leave my laptop alone.
Yeah, do not want to find my laptop taken apart.
But I'm still like that. I start and take it apart. I still, do it. I want to know how things work.
Yeah.
I'm fascinated, and it is a fascination. I spend a lot of time at my nan's as a kid and had this shed, and it was like my shed. You know, and I was ever so young, from sort of 6, 7, 8, probably, I don't know how old your lad is, but yeah, all old stuff. And I'd take apart radios and yeah, it was great. I spent hours in there, only because I wasn't allowed in the house, but you know.
I mean, you just let him, you leave him for just a moment and he's completely taken, anything, a toy apart, it doesn't matter, whatever it is. If it's you said, like an old radio or something, he just takes it all to where it's all at its basic parts and it's no longer what it was.
He'll learn the hard way. I mean,
and he's putting things together and trying to screw things together in his own way. And he's made like little creatures and robot kind of things.
Oh, brilliant. Yeah.
But he's wanting it to work and he doesn't know how to make it work. Yeah. To make it move the way that you do. And he's exploring it, but
it will take time.
I'm excited for him trying to do those kinds of things because my mind never really worked that way. And so like I can imagine things and draw it out, but to make something in a 3-dimensional form and it's moving and doing something, I mean, you're having to think about it from multiple dimensions and it needs to be in the way that you want it to be from all angles, you know. And
that's right. It's I used to draw little cogs and wheels, and there's a guy called Heath Robinson. I don't know if you know of him. He's like overcomplicating things, like just like getting out of bed machine, and it'll be a lever that he pulls, and it drops a bucket of water, and it's all you can follow the drawing round. And I suppose that I've got a lot of inspiration from that. And there's an animation in the UK here. I don't know if you see it over there, Wallace and Gromit. Have you ever seen that? It's that sort of thing. Very, and it's just, and I used to always draw little machines like that, which on paper would work, but not in reality.
Do you have any kind of like shows or events or things that you these things too? Are you mainly selling them online?
Yeah, I mean, there was a little toy shop in London that sort of discovered me just as I started selling.
Wonderful.
She helped me. Yeah. And sadly, she died about a month ago.
Oh, no.
And the shop is just this like treasure trove of automatons and old toys. And she was really a hoarder, but she's really quite famous within the Doll's House community. And she gave me a little bit of a nudge. That was her aim, was to help new artists, and she did. It was probably one of the last ones she sort of helped. The guy that worked there sort of I was trying to sell stuff on eBay, and I got like 40 quid for something. It wasn't selling. It was like, what am I doing? And so they bought about 10 pieces off me, so give me quite a boost.
Oh, that's nice.
Then I've sold a couple of bits in galleries. I think with galleries and artists, if you want a gallery to sell your stuff, then go by their rules or what they require. But if they approach you, you do it by your standards, because it's expensive. They take a lot of money.
Yeah,
they've got their place, and this is artists. Us artists are no good with money. There's rich galleries and there's poor artists, Who want to get out. Every artist,
that's all too common.
Gallery owner I know is rich. I've sold a bit through them, which is good. I was going to had a little exhibition lined up in London. It was at the back of this toy shop. With COVID, it didn't happen, and then I sold my bits. I sold some stuff through Etsy, but again, I'm still trying to figure my pricing out.
Yeah.
Again, like I say, with money, I'm no good. But they were taking 20%, and I didn't like that. So I just started selling on Instagram now.
Oh.
I mean, I've not got a buy now button where people will impulse. So it is a bit, they've got to approach me and I'll send them a PayPal invoice, which does give them time to change their mind. Do you know what I mean? But it's working all right.
Yeah.
You know, I put these Krampuses up and I've sold 7 in less than a day.
Wow, that's fantastic.
It's going all right, you know, but I'm still early on. And I'll keep putting my price up. And I'm nervous every time. But, you know, because I don't want to rip people off. But, yeah, I need to, if it's going to work for me, I need to be able to make a living. And it's just about getting there, you know.
Yeah.
People say to me, you know, well, how long does that make? Well, I might be able, the first answer would be 47 years, which is my age, you know. It is. It's what we've been through, how we've learned, designed it, you know, and now I can put it together, not too quickly.
Yeah.
But there's also the times I fail, the times I do them wrong, the materials I waste. So at the minute, it's not just about getting to the stage where, hang on, this is going to work. But the last piece, the little theatre box I sold, was nowhere near the work involved, you know.
Yeah.
But every artist knows that. And I've had people say to me before, I was selling one bit and it was 1,300. And they said, well, that's a month's money. And I said, exactly. What's your point? It's a month's work. But, you know, for some reason their time's worth more than mine. You know what I mean? I don't know. It's a funny one, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's very funny. I think you're just playing. I
think, you know, and when you get to talking about that, I think it is really about, you know, people's expectations have kind of changed with like mass produced things. Then they, you know, they run into someone like you who is creating these basically very unique pieces that they're not going to find anywhere else. And you're putting all your time and your energy and your heart into it. And then they're thinking, well, this would be the same as something that I bought online, and they've made hundreds of thousands of them. And it's just it doesn't work that way. But at the same time,
I'll say to them, we'll go and buy another one online then. You know, make one yourself.
I know about these kits, right? Go get you a kit and try to make one.
It's a tough one, and that's that thorny question that every artist, there's a thing on Facebook, sell your art. So I don't know if you're on that. And there's always people looking for, you know, what shall I charge? And this little group I've just joined, this 7 of us, we're all asking each other, you know. Mm-hmm. One of them I keep saying, you've got to put your prices up. You need to put your prices up. Yeah. But if I didn't sell quickly, I would go off the oil. I'd start doubting myself. Mm. So I like the quickness. I'm still finding my way. I don't know. Yeah. You know, maybe I will mass produce them at some point. I did have a guy, he's got this quite quaint shop in Paris. He wanted me to make some stuff, but just affiliate it. He wanted to take some of my designs and affiliate it to his shop.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, I don't know. I'm not sure. Yeah. And he said, well, I could give you a sort of 40 quid each, you know, and he said, I could probably make 10 in a day, and he lost me there. I thought, no, you can't make 10 of these in a day. You know, I don't care who you think you are, I can't, and I've designed them.
Oh my gosh.
I get approached a lot. I've had a lot of people from shops, people trying to buy wholesale, which just instantly means cheap. Yeah. I just sort of said no. So I'm just sort of making it up as I go along, like everything else in my life. And the art world, again, I mean, I find it strange. And I always say, you get like these, like a Rothko, you know, like a red canvas.
Yeah.
And people will stand there looking at it, holding their chins in appreciation. And you're thinking, well, that's not art. What's that? It's worth 10 million quid. You're like, what? And I'm spending bloody months designing something that no one else can do. And I'm getting... I don't understand it. It's a strange world. It really is.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know what makes one person's pain more valuable than the others.
And you see see these things, and I've seen there's an artist on Instagram that I just started following, and they are squirting paint onto a canvas, and then they're using like a squeegee to pull it across the canvas, and that's it. They're done.
Where are they squirting it from?
It's like
she gets some all weird stuff.
What?
Sorry, I've seen one and I was like, "What the hell is that?"
Yeah,
I've seen some of them squeegee ones. They seen one, and they actually scrape it and it looks like a picture. Have you seen that? And I don't know whether they made that, whether it's computer generated or they put a few blobs, pull it down, and it's a couple standing with a sunset. Is that the one? And I'm like,
no, I haven't seen that. Now that's kind of interesting, but
that's clever.
When I saw it was just blobs, really.
Yeah.
It didn't really look like anything.
Yeah, and you're following them.
Yeah, I know. Why am I following them? And I'm watching their videos.
Yeah.
I'm so perplexed.
Some of these people make a lot of money, and I don't get it. I don't understand. I never will. Never will. Well, stranger than making it, or the people that appreciate it. Some of it's just rubbish. And I shouldn't say that. This is an art channel, but I'm quite.
Yeah. I'm trying to support all different kinds of art.
Yeah, sorry.
It is. It's an interesting, and when it comes down to it, all artists are interesting, aren't they? And they just are all different, and it's all unique, and we're all doing it a different way. I think the part that's really, hard for us as artists to understand is how people take it, like how someone appreciates one thing but not another, and it's very varied, and you don't really know what people are going to think.
And importantly, they are the audience, I see a question online the other day and it said, if nobody loved your work or told you how good it was or bought it, would you carry on?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people trying to be sort of right on, if you like, and saying, yeah, of course. And if I'm honest, I probably wouldn't. If everyone thought what I was doing was rubbish, I would stop doing it because I wouldn't like the criticism. And I think, well, perhaps I'm doing something wrong. I mean, I'm a bit of a lone wolf anyway and do suit myself, try to. But yeah, if I wasn't getting that approval, I'm not sure I would continue. It's important to me, and it does. We all need a little bit of flattery, don't we?
Sure.
We thrive on that. Sometimes I build stuff for myself, so I can look at it and think, yeah, that's really good. And I keep it. I've got a man cave full of some weird contraptions, That's a funny question,
We've talked about some really interesting things I don't think I've had with anybody else on the interview. So I really appreciate you talking to me about this. What is... do you have an outlook as far as where you want to take it? Like where you want this to go eventually?
Yeah, I mean, come on, I'm a dreamer, man. Sometimes I think of having a factory, I want to be like a published author, I'll be, I've just been chatting last night. Someone bought a couple of pieces off me and they own a fairground. And I was asking, do you make bigger pieces? And then my head's telling me, I'm getting carried away. Yeah, I could go and work in the fairground, building rides, building big things,
Oh, my goodness.
So I don't know. Where's it going?
Yeah.
Just being able to do what I'm doing. I would like to get more technical. Like I like the watchmaking side of things and clockmaking.
Yeah.
I don't have the tools, so it's all wood that I use. I like to work that metal. Yeah, I don't know. But then everything's a learning curve with this. And sometimes they're frightening. You think, well, I need to learn that. And I think, no, I can't. I just can't bring myself to do it. The tools are expensive. There's stuff I'd like to get. There's projects I'd like to build. I don't know. I just want to keep creating. The worst thing in the world would be not creating, going back to, I've had a string of rubbish jobs, factory work, warehouse work, and it destroyed me. I hated it. I really hated it, but I've done it. When you're hating your work, you're hating your life, aren't you? The school caretaker, that was great. but the money was no good. It wasn't, even the guy I worked with, he said, you got a head on your shoulders. Why aren't you chasing the money? I just didn't have that confidence. I was lacking it. I've been not, the school of hard knocks, if you like. So I was very doubtful of what I could do. But now I've just started building stuff and get showered with praise sometimes. You do have to watch it, the old ego, because that praise doesn't last. Again, I always mention her, Judy Keeps.
Yeah.
She's also a therapist.
Oh,
and she was saying that there's an artist, a real famous one, that contacted her. And she was having a crash. She'd just put on this amazing show. And afterwards, there was a big crash, a mental crash. Because we build up. And I suppose we get like endorphins, or we get addicted to the praise. But then when that praise goes, we're down, and it's a big down. And I've noticed every project I make, and then I put it on Instagram and I get all the feedback. And then when that feedback trickles away, I start feeling like an emptiness, And talking to the other guys now, and like what you're doing, if you ask this question again to artists, you might find they all get that, I don't know if you do. You'll get the joy of finishing something, and then when that's just another painting, that joy's gone.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I think, and that's, I saw a chart where it was showing the journey of an artist, and it was just up and down and up and down and up and down. And it was like, okay, I'm feeling confident. And then I start to see something else. And it's like where you're like seeing other people's work and you're appreciating it so much. Yeah. Yours isn't quite there yet.
You're always, but that's improving, isn't it? You need to do
and on the chart, it's going up. It's going up, but it's constant up and down, up and down, up and down.
Yeah. So you'll find someone that's got something absolutely outstanding that's still experienced someone they're still going through them experiences because it's natural to them. That's where they are. It's not they produce something far beyond their capabilities. She throws so much away. I said, don't throw your art away. She said, it's rubbish. I said, it's not. She's agreed to send it to me now. I said, I want to throw it away. So send me your rubbish bags then. I'll go through them.
Oh, my gosh. Yeah.
It's a funny journey. You hear all these stories of the famous artists and all killing themselves. And our ups are up and the downs are down. Yeah. And there's nothing more, when someone wants to buy something that you've made. At first, I wasn't sure about that at the beginning. I was very doubtful, and it took a little bit of getting used to.
You're like, please don't break.
Yeah.
Please don't break.
Yeah, sure. My early stuff was rubbish. It was, it wasn't. I didn't know how. I'm learning all the time. It was just like a lump of wood and glue, really. It was. Now I use like metal and solder, and then I run my stuff on a drill. Put where the handles go. I put a drill on it. Just run it, really far, and then I start doubting if I just weakened it. I'm testing it and thinking I've just worn it out. Next turn it might break. I've had a couple break in transit. A couple of people have actually fixed them themselves. And they're happy to as well. I mean, that's how pleased they seem to be with the whole experience, which means a lot. Mainly, for some reason, I sell most of my stuff to America. And that's not just because there's more people, it's on a percentage rate, working the statistics out. I don't know why. Maybe it's that weirdness. Yeah. That weird Britishness, maybe, that I don't know I've got. I don't know. There's something. I can't put my finger on it, but it is. And it panics me because the shipping, again, on the crates are pretty much bomb-proof now, but it's like, well, I've got to send this a long way, and if it breaks, that's expensive because I've got to ship it back. I do guarantee my work. It's unwritten, but anything I'd give a year and I'll cover it, but anything after a year, I'll touch wood, it's nothing. And I don't think they get played with every day. You know, there's an initial couple of weeks, and then it sits like an ornament, doesn't it? Like all of that stuff, you know.
Yeah.
Becomes part like a parlour toy.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Russia, I had a bit with Russia as well. Because on Instagram, I don't promote a lot. I might put, if I'm selling something, I'll put a £15 promotion on it, and I've tried all different countries. And I've done Russia, and there was a lot of feedback, but I didn't understand what they were saying, so it might have been negative.
You got a lot of attention, but you don't know what was good attention.
Lots of laughing emojis. I might know how to take them. But.
Oh no! I know you probably feel like you're sort of at the beginning of your journey, but at the same time, like you said, you've been doing this all your life. In reality, you're working through, figuring these things out. But what advice would you give to like a young person who, maybe they're starting to make something and maybe afraid to share it or
that's a tough one. Wow.
Put it out there. What would you tell them as someone who's maybe overcome that?
That's a real toughie, because I sort of covered the sort of I wasn't sure about my work. People, and I didn't start really to sell. I was just making. And people were showing, and I would only show my friends, and that's like anything. That's tough, isn't it? That's like we're our own worst critics as well. I mean, we've got to be critical to keep our standards up, but normally we're too critical. But exposing your art is like nerve-wracking. I can get that. I don't know why. Just on that question, I just thought of that ML, what was it, 8 Mile, where he's nervous as hell to go and do the rapping. I don't know if you've seen that film. And he had that song, didn't he, about doing it. And you've just got to have a bit of a tough skin, I suppose. But don't fear the negative,
Yeah.
There's lots. So I had one nasty, but I'd already had a lot of praise before then, so I was just kicking him around really and holding him back. But you're doing, and that's where you have to do it for the love.
Yeah.
I think you know yourself when something's good, don't you? You think, I know when I've made something or drawn something or painted something, and I think, no, that's good. In fact, if I get to that level and show someone, I'd get offended. and think, and then just put it down to they're jealous. And they probably are, because not everyone is capable of painting. Not everyone, and a lot of negativity comes from jealousy.
Sure.
So, they'll just say, they're just having a pop because they're sort of reflecting that they can't do it. Or they're not, I believe that in everything.
Yeah. I think there are a lot of people who, as children, we all start off being pretty creative and imaginative. And then at some point, some people lose that. And then when they see someone like a peer who is still able to do that or to make something it can make them feel like upset because they're not doing it themselves, and so they take a shot, because they gave up on something themselves.
That's right. And if you can call yourself an artist, you've got an identity. Because I lost that a long time and I didn't know what I was, who I was. And I would attack other people, I suppose, in my mind, and not like stuff. But now I turned a corner by trying to look at the good in everything,
Yeah.
Just a life thing, And I found if I look for the best in people, that's what I see. And then that's what they see, that's the engagement in life. I mean, if you're sort of looking at the bad and you're bitter and twisted, you're going to find that. And that's just life, isn't it? If you go about life as a thief, the whole world's a thief, isn't it? But if you go about sharing love and kindness, then all of a sudden that's what you receive back. That's how I've found and learned and worked for me, So I mean, I think my uncle, when I started making, he come over and just told me I was a weirdo. I did and stuff. He did. He's horrible. That's his nickname, horrible. in his body. But, he did. He tried to ridicule me, and I was just like, get out of here. You know what I mean? But there's a level of bitter and twistedness there, like you say, do what you want to do. And to be able to engage in stuff today and be absorbed by it is a beautiful thing, isn't it? Because I remember there was a time when I couldn't. I had a hobby. I didn't have any hobbies. I didn't know this was a hobby. It dawned on me. I thought, I've got a hobby. People have fishing. I've never had sports. I've hated sport. I've never, and I was just searching. What do I like? And I didn't know. So I make my own thing up.
Yeah, it's working.
That's a good question. Well, yeah, it seems to be, and I've never been happier. I've never been happier in life doing what I'm doing now. There's a guy I follow. He's part of this little group we're in, Made Birds. I don't know if you've had links to this later. And this guy, he's got 2 children, he's got a full-time job, and his work is phenomenal. And he's trying to make, and I don't know, I said, do you get up before you go to bed? How do you do all this? But and he's pursuing his dreams, and it's hard. It's hard work. What I do is hard work. What people see at the end, you just think, you just build this quirky little daft thing that goes round and round. Immense amount of work that goes into it. It really is. It might look a bit silly and simple, but they're not. People try and do commissions for them. And I don't like doing them. I don't mind. I put in not a high price, but it's a price that scares them, but it's quite a fair price if you consider the work.
Yeah.
But they will say, I just want that moving over there, or I just want this moving over here, and do a bit of that. Yeah. But to make something move is very, very difficult. It's not an easy thing, and then they start designing it and saying, well, why don't you do this? And it just doesn't work. I'm just like, no. So I turn them down now. Yeah. I get quite a few requests, but, and they want one-offs. And I'm saying it's going to be expensive because I make my money by designing something and then selling. Maybe I might need to sell 10 to make my time even worthwhile.
Speaking on the commissions thing, I don't know what that is. I've experienced that as well. And there are people who are really good at taking commissions and doing that kind of work. But for some reason, it's really hard for me to do that. And because like you said, you start to have people, maybe I'm a people pleaser. And so
I am. Yeah.
When they start to request certain things, then there's this battle inside where you're like, I know that that's not going to work and that's not going to look okay. That doesn't make sense. Yeah. But at the same time, they're buying my work and they want this commission, and you're wanting to be happy.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're like, but it's not going to work, it's not going to be the way I would have done it,
No, and also we're governed by rules all of a sudden, aren't we? We've got it's not what we're making. It's not coming from our art. We're just trying to actually aim to please them. And if it doesn't, then it'd be devastating, wouldn't it? Whereas if you make money out of your hobby, you never have to work again. And that's sort of what I'm aiming, really, hoping for. But again, to other artists, there are sacrifices to make, aren't there?
Oh, yeah.
You have to give, I don't know about yourself. I mean, you've got family and that. I've not got no young children, but there are things I don't do. And you have to, if you want to be drawing or creating art all day, there are things, your social life may even get impacted, because it's not just sitting down drawing a masterpiece and putting it up, is it? It's all. There's so much involved, like the selling, the advertising, the packaging. I mean, yourself, you said just rolling a picture up that doesn't get folded or creased. There's so many sides to just for someone to have a picture on their wall. A lot of sweat and tears goes into it.
Keeping up with, messages and sales and, making sure that things get to the places that you want them to get to safely. I mean, they're just,
it's terrifying, isn't it? Terrifying sending stuff out. Absolutely terrifying.
You have these originals too. Well, I've had commissions where the person was like, you just make something. They may give me a, something like, I would like something with wings or something like that, and you just create something. Now that's wonderful, because then you really get to actually make your work. But you're, building an idea around this one thing that they're wanting.
But if they're like that, they could just buy something you've already made, couldn't they?
Yes, they really could. But they'll be like...
They love their input. They want to have a little part of that creation, don't they? I think quite into that. Because I think that might be part of it, So they'll say, well, I've got this specially made. They like the one-off aspects, but they like that they've had a little bit of input themselves. It gives them a little insight into being an artist. When they're not, they're just a pain in the arse.
They're getting to participate in a way, I guess.
Yeah.
They're helping us out,
Yeah, and then they put it up as a collaboration. You're like, what?
Then they want to make sure that you put their name, on the bottom of it.
Yeah, first. Yeah, yours in little writing. In pen.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that is so funny.
But like to new artists, I'm chewing on that question you said about any advice, and I wish I could give some. I mean, I don't know what yours is, but
I think a lot of what we've been talking about here is pretty good. What you're saying about your own struggles and things like that. That's just people hearing things like that and being able to say, I'm not alone. That's important. That's a huge help to others. And that's one thing that I wish that I had heard as a younger artist, because it was just like, at the time, it just seemed like everybody else had it all together and knew what to do.
We judge our sort of internals by their externals. So they're looking, and then when you get to talk to them.
And they'll tell you all their problems, like all the things.
This is probably bad. This is bad advice, because we're actually saying it doesn't get any better. It doesn't get any easier.
That's true. Oh my God.
Quit now.
No, don't quit now. Oh, that's awesome. This is a fantastic talk, and I really, really appreciate you doing this. And
thank you for asking me. I really enjoyed it. Thanks. You take care.
All right, thanks.
I'll speak to you soon. All right, bye-bye.
Thank you for listening to Art Talk with April. I hope you enjoyed the show. Please subscribe.